King Malcolm is brooding over the event horizon, drinking Nespresso Napoli out of a silver chalice and listening to sonic waves of wonder on his supernatural Victrola.
All right, we are back. This is Creativity is the Cure. I am your host, Malcolm Moore, and today I have a really special guest, one of my favorite voice actors, Maurice LaMarche. How are you doing, Maurice?
I'm terrific, Malcolm. Thank you for having me.
So the way we know each other is, of course, Tom Caltabiano. I think we originally met at one of his pizza parties.
Yes, where he wood fires his own pizza. I mean, it's not just like, hey, we're going to order some pizza. Come on over. It's like Tom does everything like a true foodie and a true chef, even though he does not carry those credentials. He's one of the best amateur cooks I know and a brilliant comedy writer and photographer. Everybody loves Raymond, two-time Emmy winner for that, and that's how we know each other. But we know our connection was originally through food.
Yes,
yeah,
and the bread too.
We would see each other.
How can we forget Tom's bread?
Well, the bread was the cement. Not that it has the consistency of cement, but it is fairly dense. But you want that in a sourdough. No, I met Tom. We went to the same sushi place. The writers of Everybody Loves Raymond and I always seemed to bump into each other in line at the old Sushi Nozawa, which was, of course, the precursor to Sugarfish and Kazunori here in Los Angeles and now in New York. And we just began having nice chats among our tables, and I knew Ray from stand-up, and then we bonded over. I won an Emmy, and I didn't know that Tom both was helping write the show and was backstage with his ever-present camera,
yes,
just photographing. And so I get backstage with the dummy Emmy in hand, and he's there, and I go, Tom, what are you doing here? Tom Caltabiano at my Emmy Award ceremony. And he's like, stand still, Maurice, stand still. Just hold up the Emmy. There was none of that like, Maurice, wow, fantastic. It's just, because everything rolls off Tom's back perfectly. I mean,
yes.
You know that about Tom.
Well, we just saw that as he left.
We just saw that here. His wife, thank goodness, wasn't serious, but she just got in a car accident. He has a plane to catch in an hour. And he just came in and started fiddling with lights. I want to get one picture of the two of you here doing the podcast. Grace had to empty out her car and then take out her father's car and take everything out of the trunk. But we're meeting at Burbank Airport in just 17 minutes, and we're flying to a wedding and blah, blah, blah. And everybody's okay. And we take a picture. Ka-cheesh, ka-cheesh, ka-cheesh. And that's our Tom.
And we may see these photos a year from now, 7 years from now,
or
but
he
somewhere
may send them to our phones in 15 minutes.
Yes.
But they do show up. He uses every image, and he's a brilliant photographer. I mean,
absolutely.
Have you seen his photos of food?
He
should be shooting for Gourmet magazine.
Yes.
I mean, you go to a restaurant with him, and he makes like a peanut butter sandwich look like, oh my God, that must be a Jacques Pepin peanut butter sandwich. It's perfect. Look at the way the raspberry jam is just oozing out on the side in one lovely globule. He captures the light. You can see the sun in it. That's the kind of photographer Tom is. Tom excels at everything he tries.
Yeah, he's truly a Renaissance man.
He is indeed. And his knowledge of all things aviation is...
Oh.
But I can't talk about that with him because all I know is, I buy a plane ticket and then it goes up and I try to go to sleep before it takes off so that I don't ponder too much how impossible this is.
Yeah, he was very excited when my wife and I got a house in Palmdale because, of course, it's near Edwards Air Force Base.
Yes, so yes. Suddenly Tom was showing up for lunch. Yes. And then, I got to go. Thanks for the peanut butter sandwich. Let me shoot that. Ka-cheesh, ka-cheesh, ka-cheesh. Now I'm going over to Edwards. Yeah.
Yeah. The way that I know about your work is my wife and I watched cartoons with you and them in the 80s. And then when we had both our boys in the 90s and the early 2000s, we watched your work together.
Oh, thanks.
And some of the things we remember here, Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Which, very obscure. That's what an obscure. Yeah. I did one episode of that. I played Lawrence Talbot.
Well, our family, we still, it doesn't matter how old you are, we all watch cartoon shows and puppet shows together. Oh, wow. Still, no matter how old we are. Of course, Pinky and the Brain is our favorite.
Yes, my friend, we shall take over the world. Come, Pinky, back to the lab to plan for tomorrow night.
And I'm so glad that you guys redid that and it came back because the episodes were just as good as the first time around.
Thank you. They were different, and not everybody feels that way. I get to hear this feedback when I do Comic-Cons, as I just did this weekend in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Some people were quite vocal about how they didn't, care for the differences in the two iterations. But I saw the value in both. Of course, the original, you can't beat its being the original.
Yeah, but that was also so long ago, and times have changed, and I thought you guys adapted well.
Yeah, pardon the coughing. I've got a little tickle. I don't know why.
No problem. Take your time.
So a little sip of water.
Yes, I've heard you're an expert at burping, right?
Well, it's the syntho belch. It's not an actual burp, and yet I'm. Oh my gosh! I just realized. Talk about ADHD as we were doing before we rolled. I've got to get back to a guy because he wants to do. He's doing a podcast about the 30th anniversary of Elf.
Yes,
and he wants to interview me about my connection. Oh no, it's not a podcast; it's a book. So we won't be helped by audio.
Well, tell the younger listeners your connection to Elf because whenever Christmas comes around, that's what the kids want to watch.
And this is the thing. It is the most watched Christmas movie.
Yeah.
It's past A Christmas Carol.
Wow, really?
Yes. So every generation knows the movie. And my contribution to it is that when Buddy drinks that entire bottle of Coke the first time he sits down to the dinner table and lets out that some people say 12, some people say 17, 15.
Yeah.
I've never timed it. And they tried to, now they could probably AI it. But they tried to cobble together a bunch of, real belches into one long belch. And you could hear the edits. And they had heard my contribution to the great Wackarati on Animaniacs, where Wacko comes out and belches in tune to Blue Danube and whatever other, I can't remember what other classical pieces we did at the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
Because they knew I could do this thing, and I can do it in pitch, or in key, rather. So they asked me if I could sustain that for 15 seconds, and we did it in one take. Wow. I just looped it in. I watched Will.
Yeah.
On the I call him Will because we did one episode of The Oblongs together. He's really nice, though. I mean, really nice guy. And so I watched, his mouth and just. It's a combination of like Tuvan throat singing.
Yeah.
Not that I ever, studied with the Tuvan monks, but
well aware
it's the same effect. Coupled with turning your tongue sort of inside out and using the chambers that you create on the inside of your cheeks. Sort of Georgie just, what is this? Kind of thing. And there you go. You have the syntho belch.
So when you bring up the Tuvan throat singing, because I'm a music teacher, I often teach my students about the Mongolian, the monks that developed this. So with that type of singing, they're singing two notes at once.
Yes. What
is the connection to the way that you were burping? There's two different sounds. Is that what you mean?
I think so. I mean, it's certainly low. I don't know. I mean, it's not particularly. It's not a perfected technique in the sense that. I don't know if I could do the two notes at once.
Yeah.
And are they really doing two notes at once? That's the thing.
Yeah, it's kind of an illusion, but it's still pretty cool. It's like when you whistle and hum at the same time. Right,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the lower end of at least the vocal part of Tuvan throat singing. It's like that, but I need the tongue turned inside out to make sure I don't let too much air out. But it's and the more I open my mouth, of course, more volume. I'm giving away the story here, Malcolm. Anybody will be able to do my syntho belch. I'll lose work.
Hey,
I'm not worried about AI. I'm worried about people listening to this podcast and stealing my syntho belch.
At least it's only audio. They can't see the visual.
That's true.
I think we have a mutual friend, Victor Yared.
I love Victor.
Right. In my estimation, one of the best puppeteers on the planet.
Absolutely.
However, I got to work with Victor on some projects with Tom, and at one point he was teaching me how to do ADR because we made a video and I needed to fix up the audio.
Yep.
I found it not as difficult as I thought because I'm a drummer and I have pretty good timing.
Rhythm.
And Victor also, I don't know if you know, is a percussionist in the orchestra. So
that I did not know about, Victor.
And he invited me on to watch on the set of Crank Yankers, and I was blown away how these puppeteers and actors would memorize the rhythm of speech. So for you, do you have a musical background? How are you so good at that?
Only in terms of a love of music. I mean, I've studied 3 instruments at different points in my childhood for 6 months each.
Yeah.
And then I lost patience with myself because reading music did not come to me. And I'm so self-critical that I almost threw a saxophone across the music room.
Wow.
Because I just couldn't get it. And I just went, well, it's a very expensive instrument and
wise choice.
Wouldn't have done. But I felt like throwing the goddamn saxophone. So I did saxophone for 6 months, switched to viola in the next term.
Wow.
And then I had piano lessons. I had piano lessons prior to that, but I don't know if I have a music dyslexia or what. But reading music is the toughest part for me. But I have always loved music. I listened to it constantly, especially as a kid. Classical music I fell in love with at 10 years old. Today I'm a supporter of the LA Philharmonic.
Wow, that's wonderful.
In fact, I have tickets tonight, and I haven't told my wife. I forgot to tell her. We got the Phil tonight. So, but I mean, I do have a decent sense of rhythm. My son is better. My son is a professional musician. And,
wow.
Yeah, and his sense of rhythm and keeping time is fantastic. I can kind of lose the beat after about maybe 8 bars, 10 bars.
Well, you're a very good singer. Pitch-wise and
all right.
Being articulate.
I'm all right. I don't have that. I don't have squealo, which is the thing that you really listen to when somebody achieves it. I've got a decent vibrato, but that's about it. And I can fall out of the middle of the note if I'm not really concentrating. It's not intuitive, but it comes into the talking part. It's very handy to have that. And with ADR, automated dialogue replacement, or what we call looping, you just get into the rhythm of, you watch the lips, you get into the rhythm of what the original actor said. You get to know the rhythms of the puppeteers, and the puppeteers get to know your rhythms. Because we did a show, first time we pre-recorded. I did the second Spitting Image special.
Yeah, I remember.
Or it might have been the first Spitting Image special for ABC back in 1987.
Great show.
With Harry Shearer.
Wow.
Was one of my fellow people, and then a couple of wonderful British comedians who I wish I could look it up, but I don't want to waste your time. But wonderful British comic actors, and then segued into DC Follies with Sid and Marty Krofft,
right? Which
I got nominated for an Emmy for in a sort of a group nomination. It was the puppeteers plus me as one performance. So.
Wow.
Yeah, there were like 5 puppeteers plus myself. If we'd have won, we'd have taken home 7 statues. But on that set, we had to really be simpatico with each other. And they had to know what I would do. We rehearsed the scene once because we didn't have a lot of time. Yeah. We were shooting this thing on the Tuesday for it to go up in the air on Friday because the humor was so politically oriented. DC Follies was supposedly set in a Washington bar.
Right.
The only human on the show was Fred Willard, brilliant improviser.
Yes.
He played Fred the bartender, and he was the voice of reason as all these celebrity life-size puppets were, coming into the bar having discussions and arguments, and the 4 ex-presidents would sit at a high top table and discuss whose presidency was better, and I would do Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford, and the great John Rourke from Fridays would do Reagan and George Bush, which he later played in The Naked Gun 33 and a third because he looks a little like Bush, and we would just have tremendous fun. But the puppeteers. It's like a Ouija board. You don't know who's actually moving the little thing you've got your fingers on, whether it's the other guy or whether it's you or whether it's spirits. We just got into a simpatico with each other where we each knew what they were going to do next.
Almost sounds like jazz musicians, because I grew up playing jazz as a drummer, and the more you play with the same people, you develop riffs and language.
Absolutely.
So is it a little bit like that?
I would say it's very much like that.
Yeah.
So it was puppeteer jazz. It was puppet jazz.
Yeah.
I didn't again, we didn't know where we began and the puppeteers ended. It was it became this seamless performance, which is probably why it netted us Emmy nominations. Both John and I were nominated for Emmys. And a lot of we canceled each other out, and Linda Ronstadt won, but that no talent. No, I'm kidding.
A lot of that stuff's on YouTube, right? If people haven't seen it.
Sure. Yeah, I think you can YouTube DC Follies.
Yeah.
And
some spitting image.
There's some fun stuff. Yeah, the spitting image thing is probably more probably more obscure. Especially it was only one American or two American specials. I mean, it was ubiquitous on British television for many
I remember
years.
They did that video for Genesis for Land of Confusion, and that
was after the special. Yeah, pretty amazing.
There was a big resurgence in cartoons in the 90s. We were so excited, like when Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead, and then all these shows like
it was
Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah, there was a real renaissance going on. And prior to that, I think the cartoons of the 80s, I mean, there was some good stuff in there. There was fun. But I mean, even Real Ghostbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which my friend Rob Paulson, who plays Pinky, was on. He was Raphael. They were kind of toy commercials.
Yeah.
22-minute long toy commercials, and the action figures were out there. And, now I sign all these, Egon Spengler, action figures, and some of these people have kept them since 1985.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but with Real Ghostbusters, I have to say though, they really made a concerted effort because Ivan Reitman was the exec producer of the television show, as were Harold and Dan, and Harold Ramis and Danny Aykroyd, and they really had strict creative control.
Yes.
They wouldn't rubber stamp a script unless they, in their words, felt that it would make a good Ghostbusters too.
Yeah.
So all of those personality dynamics among the four main characters, all of that had to be really true to the movie, even though none of the movie actors were on it. But we were, and our Janines, because they did change Janines. The network wanted somebody who sounded more wholesome. Whereas the syndicated version was fine with somebody with an actress that sounded like Annie Potts's Brooklynese thing. So we had Laura Summer, wonderful actor, as our Janine in the syndicated episodes, and then this brand new girl who's gone on, of course, to become a legend, Kath Soucie, was our Janine in the ABC Saturday morning version, where her skirt was a little longer. It was at the knee instead of a mini skirt, and she was, she had a very almost Sweet Polly purebred kind of sound to her, So it was two different dynamics there, but we made them both work. And, but it was a time when, and then the 90s came along, and I know Spielberg, his driving force was, I want to make cartoons that are funny again. I want it to be, Disney's the happiest place on earth. I want the Warner Brothers cartoons with my name on it to be the funniest place on earth. And so we had Tiny Toon Adventures, and we had Animaniacs, and Pinky and the Brain got their own show off of that. And even non-Spielbergian iterations like Hysteria and Tasmania, the home life of the Tasmanian Devil, where I got to be Bing Crosby as his dad. The concentration was on humor. There were no,
and even
they made
a
few plushies, but they weren't making money on merchandise.
The artwork was wild. It almost made me think of the abstract Looney Tunes stuff from 50s and 60s when they'd have the pink angular bushes and Powerpuff Girls. And then after Simpsons going into Futurama, there's just this wildness that I remember no matter what age our kids were, all four of us, both our sons and my wife and I, just could not stop laughing.
Well, there was a wildness to it. There was also a sense, and I know this is the case with Spielberg. He wanted to create a show that adults would enjoy, not just tolerate.
Yes.
That there would be humor for the adults, that they would go over the kids' heads.
Yeah.
And then stuff that, I mean, the adults loved Brain, because there was a lot of verbal humor in turns of phrase. Yeah. And he was sort of a slow burn and slow burn character with lots of little digs and witticisms. And then the kids loved Pinky because he was just, la 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 la. So, they loved it. So Brain scared them. People tell me now as an adult, well, I found Brain really scary. It's like, well, thank you for coming over to my table anyway. And I now have your soul, my friend. Yes. So,
it was not only funny though, but there was some just bizarre stuff like Chicken Boo. Like he would show up and you're like, what?
Yeah. What? And just the through line of that character is he didn't know he was a chicken.
Yeah.
His song was, you wear a disguise to look like human guys, but you're not a man, you're a chicken boo. And it's like, okay. Yeah. Because eventually everybody in the sketch starts to catch on that he's a chicken. It's a giant chicken. And I never really got to be in any of those, but so I could enjoy them as a spectator. But yeah. Well,
and even the songs, when I teach middle school now, but when I taught elementary, they loved the one with the countries. I know it's completely out of date now.
Well, but Randy Rogel, who wrote that song, has actually written a new verse.
We've seen that, yeah.
I've just come off. I just came off doing a tour last year, and we've done a couple of dates this year, including one at Ohio University just this past weekend, which was Nancy Cartwright's alma mater. And so she came with us on this one because she played Mindy. In addition to being Bart Simpson, she played Mindy in the segment Mindy and Buttons, which is about a totally innocent child who constantly wanders off, gets out of the yard. I don't know, I guess 90s parenting hadn't hit her parents. Yeah. They were more like 60s parents where they just let the kid out in the yard with the dog, tied a rope around her and she'd always get out and it's like that sleepwalking olive oil Popeye cartoon where she's sleepwalking and she's walking on girders and so this type of thing that happened to Mindy, and it was Buttons, or the dog. His job was to make sure she doesn't get killed. And but she was just this innocent. She was like, I love you, bye-bye. Hi, lady. I'm mommy, honey. I'm mommy. Bye, lady. I love you, bye-bye. So Nancy, of course, was so perfect in that voice because she has the register. She's such an amazing actor. So she came out and so we did the music of Animaniacs. And of course, our big closer is the song you're talking about, which is United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru. Rob can do it. Rob has never messed that song up once. He got it on take one from the day we did it. Wow. And he can do it at the drop of a hat. I'm only now learning it 35 years later. So the Spielberg directive was create a show that the adults will enjoy as well as the kids. I think with Matt Groening and The Simpsons and later Futurama, it's like create a show the adults enjoy and the kids catch on great. It's like it's definitely an adult-centric show.
But I've found as time goes on, more kids are watching both of those now, a lot more than when they originally came out.
Yeah. Yes. And it's become so ingrained in the culture. It's like you have to have seen Sunday Night Simpsons because that's what the kids are talking about.
Of course, they see it on TikTok now.
Of course, yeah. They just see the best little snippets from it. But, I've been very lucky to be on these shows. I mean, I'm going to do my 30th Simpsons as a guest actor.
Oh, my gosh.
Special guest voice. And I always get that billing because they like me because God knows I'm not Mick Jagger. I get the same billing that, a single card, special guest voice. Any big star, I get that because Al Jean is a friend and we work together on The Critic. Same with James L.
Another
Brooks.
Great show, yeah.
Another great show. Jim Brooks, and I'm very grateful they like me, so they just let me have that card. And so I'm doing my 30th one on Monday.
Yeah.
I've signed an NDA, so I can't tell you the plot line, but I'm playing a totally new character in a flashback. So.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, yeah. I mean, you're really blessed to have done this for so many years, but the flip side is you brought so many people happiness and laughter. That must feel great.
If I can let that in, it does. For those moments, that's why I do the Comic-Cons. Because when people come up to you and tell you, and it happens at least once a con where somebody has a very touching story. Yeah. Whether it's, the first time it happened, it just choked me up so much. Mom had died in this little girl's family, and she was an adult now. And she said she and her dad were literally just, for a year, they were just shell-shocked. They just walked around the house doing only what needed to be done, cooking a meal, getting off to school. They hardly talked to each other. But at 4:00, they would sit down on the couch and watch Animaniacs, followed by Pinky and the Brain. And they laughed.
That's great.
That was their hour to be just have fun.
Escapism.
And she was like thanking me for that. And I said, well, 187 people go into the making of every episode of Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs. So, you know, on their behalf, I thank you for, you know, letting us know that we were able to help in some small way. But, you know, yeah, I mean, entertainment's there to you know, help us forget that one day we're going to die. You know, that's basically the function of entertainment, is to distract us from our problems, including the biggest one. You know, how do you square that? So, and I've just dropped that bomb on all you people. So if you were ignoring it, there it is.
Well, I think they can listen to the Eric Idle, the Meaning of Life song, and they can laugh about what you think.
Oh no, that's from Life of Brian.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly, which is another way of laughing at death. This is all we can do with death is laugh at it. So, I mean, how many times did the coyote die? You know, I mean, he should have died. We're watching him fall to his death, and we're laughing because we have to. So anyway, getting to be on these shows with great writing.
Yes.
Wonderful writing. I always, that's one of the reasons Tom and I bonded, is I take my hat off to great writers.
Yes.
And, you know, I don't think it's about me. I don't think I'm particularly brilliant. If you leave me in a room with Rob Paulson and we sit there and try and improvise an episode of Pinky and the Brain, it won't happen. Yeah. You know, we'll just go, he'll say Narf and I'll go, take over the world. Come, Pinky. We've got to take over the world. I've got to build a thing that'll help me take over the world. Pinky, now you do something that distracts me. Narf, silly Willy. Okay, Pinky, well, we're done and we didn't take over the world. Now back to the lab to plan for tomorrow night.
Although I did, on the way here, I listened to one of Matt Gourley's podcasts with you. Oh. And you guys were riffing and improvising, and it was pretty funny.
Yeah, after I told him I don't do improv. Yeah. You know, and he told me, I think he told me in that, or maybe he told me off stage, he says, just think of it as screwing around with your friend.
Yeah.
And I can do that. But if you say improv, this giant weight comes on my shoulders. Yeah. And the pipeline in my brain squeezes off. I can think of no references or anything that means anything to make this funny. But yeah, just riffing and having fun was great. I love Matt Gourley. In fact, I was strangely enough sitting in my car waiting for you to present yourself, and waiting to come into the studio. And I thought to myself, I haven't talked to Matt Gourley in about 6 months. I got to give him a call and see how he's doing.
He's got so many cool podcasts.
He's got so many cool podcasts, and he's producing Conan's podcast.
Conan's one of mine.
So he's a busy guy, but I think he'll still take my call. I hope he will.
Do you prefer doing voice work with all the other actors in the room?
Oh,
or
yes.
Would you like the track by track?
I know what you're asking. I know what you're about to ask. Unless I'm actually alone, like in other words, unless it's a spokesman kind of thing, like I used to do for Lexus or American Airlines, where I was the voice of the product. No, I want to be in the room with as many human beings as possible. Yeah. You know, it's
what is it like? Are you guys all looking at scripts, or are you also giving eye contact?
It's funny. It's funny. I tend to stay on the script and imagine the cartoon like in the white parts. You know, I look at the black parts of the words and I sort of mentally project the cartoon onto the white parts so that I'm picturing what's actually happening. I'm of course never as brilliant as what the actual animators do, but it's enough for me to go into that reality and almost put on the costume of the character. Like I climb up inside Kif, you know, and become Kif when I'm working, you know.
I think you have to with that character.
Of course. Although the sigh part, that's, you know, that comes fairly naturally to both my wife and me. And I actually stole her weary sigh, which I've been listening to for 30 years, because it's the wife eye roll. She just, whenever I say something that's completely brilliant and that's the solution to how to stack the dishwasher, I just hear, ugh. And so when Kif had to, you know, give his first weary sigh, I just thought of Robin, my wife, and went, ugh. And that's became his, Matt Groening cracked up. He said, we're keeping that in. He's got to sigh every episode. He's got to be so put upon by this idiot, Zap Brannigan. He's got to, ugh. So that's just something that I don't know how, in the case of Futurama, I don't know how weary or exasperated I am unless I hear Billy West say, Kif, put out my formal shorts. The captain has mated with a woman. And then I go, Oh, yes, sir. It's just, yeah.
Is there anybody that you've worked with like that doing voices that they're so funny that you have a hard time keeping it together?
I think once I enter the reality of the
Yeah.
of the story, I save my laughter till after we yell cut, we come out of it, and then you go, holy darn it, that was funny, Because when I'm in it, it's a weird thing. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story. Way back in the early '80s, my very first regular series, I'd done a couple of one-offs, was Inspector Gadget.
Yes, love that one.
With Don Adams.
Yes.
Who, for your younger readers, was a brilliant comic actor who had a show called Get Smart.
Love that, yeah.
In the 1960s during the height of the Cold War. And he played the world's most inept secret agent who thought he was the world's best secret agent. And there's a level of cluelessness that you just, just...
And he had a shoe phone. We can't...
Yeah, I mean, the cell phones didn't exist, but the idea of something portable... was that you could talk on was already in the minds of Mel Brooks and Buck Henry. So they decided, well, he wouldn't carry a little thing like Star Trek, a communicator. He'd put it in his. So they had a shoe phone. So he'd have to take off his shoe, flip the heel down, and make a phone call.
Well, you'd have to dial. So
and he'd dial. Yeah, the dial was in the heel, so he'd turn the heel and talk into his smelly shoe. So anyway, Don Adams played again. Kind of Inspector Gadget was Maxwell Smart on steroids. I mean, he was even more clueless, but he was also totally bionic.
Yes.
So he had so many working parts on him. I mean, basically the only thing that was human about him was his head. And so he could, go, Gadget, legs. And he, suddenly his legs would telescope up so that he could, cross a bridge by stepping over it.
Yeah.
Or go, Gadget, copter. And then a helicopter would come out of his back and help him fly. So Don was Gadget, and I was the chief. And
you came in second season, right?
I came in the second season, the first 65 episodes. Don was up in Canada doing a sitcom about a supermarket, and he was a supermarket manager. It was called Check It Out, and so they did the first 65 episodes with a completely different cast. But they had to lose that cast because they were all Canadians. And when they came down to the States, because he was done and he didn't want to stick around in season 2. So I stepped into the part of Chief Quimby. And one day in the break room, I asked him about Ed Platt, who played the chief, the other chief, the right. Real chief on Get Smart. And I said, I just loved how Ed Platt did the entire thing as though he had a migraine headache. And he said, well, Ed was actually the reason Get Smart succeeded. I said, really? And he goes, yeah, if any other actor in the 1960s, all those guys who played, the client on Bewitched, there was like a pool, central casting of boss actors who would play the boss. If any of those guys had ended up as the chief, we would have gotten a guy who said, Max, what are you doing? But Ed played it as though it was drama. Ed played the chief as though he was on a show 7 nights a week about the Secret Service, and it was a drama except for this one night when he had to deal with this idiot named Maxwell Smart. And that's the glue. That's what made him, he was the one everybody related to. And so, he would play it as, Max, what are you doing? And that was what made it perfect. And it was absolutely right. And I took that and I thought to myself, play the drama.
Yeah.
And so whenever I'm doing, unless it's the most, but I've never played a character who talks like this. But, I'm sure if I did, I'd play the drama of that character. But I always play drama when I'm doing comedy and let the writing take me to comedy.
Right.
The brain is constantly exasperated that he can't take over the world, which is his goal, because he's got this loopy, moron named Pinky who he actually has deep affection for, but he constantly fouls up the plans. But I play it as though that is my goal and that's what I want, and I don't play it as this implausible character who couldn't possibly take over the world because he's a 2-inch tall lab mouse.
Yeah, dead serious.
Yeah. So and same with Kiff. His struggle for respect with Zap, same. Morbo the newscaster. He is truly, he truly is waiting for the Armada to come and destroy this silly world. But in the meantime, I must make a living as a newscaster.
I never realized that about a lot of your characters. Yeah, that makes sense.
A lot of them are angry, and a lot of them are have very strong wants.
So let's go way, way back in time. What is your first creative memory? What was the first time as a child that you thought of an idea, brought it into the physical realm, and executed it, and said, "Oh, where did that come from?"
I started to draw.
Really?
I saw a Peanuts special on Peanuts, Charles Schulz, and I watched Charles. They went in on his whiteboard and they on his drawing board, and they showed how he drew Snoopy.
Yeah.
So I followed what he did, and I drew Snoopy, and it wasn't bad. And then there was this thing in the back of the TV guide they used to have: draw this deer, draw the baby deer. It looked like Bambi, and so without tracing, I would draw the deer. And then one night my little brother was asleep in bed, and I just drew him with pencil. I just very, very, just in profile. And my grandmother just started drawing attention to the fact that I really could draw, and she wanted me to send. So I sent it in. I clipped a little coupon to go to art college. I wasn't paying attention. I think I was 8.
Yeah.
And, I gave my age. And they actually sent me back a little something saying, well, you are very talented, but you were a little young for our school, but we hope that when you become of college age. So that's really the first creative thing I remember doing was drawing. Then the idea of doing voices and comedy was kind of, hand in hand with that. I have a friend named Paul Riley. And Paul Riley actually went on and made a living as an animator and artist, and now he does all the art for the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. And he does these brilliant, pencil. I guess was it pointillism, where you just do dots on a pencil of all the great players, and of course there's a wealth of them to do, and they unveil them, and they're brilliant. I mean, they look like photographs. They're so good, so textured, and his work is so beautiful. But we were in second grade together, and I remember going over to Paul's house, and he would draw, and I would do the voices, and we'd just kind of create these little cartoons. Or he showed me how to draw Fred Flintstone, so I drew Fred Flintstone while I'm trying to do, hey Barney, let's finish our homework, whatever. And so I started drawing Fred Flintstone. There was a little girl I had a crush on in the class. I kept giving her pictures of Fred Flintstone. So those were really my first, and then walking to school, parroting the cartoons that I just watched. My favorite was Beaky Buzzard. It was a Bugs Bunny. He was a Bugs Bunny adversary, but he was innocent, but he's a buzzard. So he needs to, have a kill to bring home to his homies. He'd flop his wings like this, and he'd go, I'm bringing home a baby, bumblebee, boop-a-doop, boop, boop-a-doop-a-doop. First voice I ever really did. I think I did that back in first grade.
So you're walking by yourself?
I'm walking by myself singing this thing, just wanting to recreate this funny character. Yeah. So, kind of just a little after my dawn of conscious memory, I wanted to, you kind of start remembering stuff from around 4. So by the time I'm 6, I'm just wanting to create stuff, create sounds, create voices or recreate them.
And this was with no goal. You just had a passion for it,
I just found joy in it.
Yeah.
Now, my mother was a rageaholic, so I needed as much escape from that as possible. Okay. And in my little mind, I thought, well, if I'm funny, and if I can make mommy laugh, my rageaholic mommy laugh, then maybe, and if my teachers who regularly got angry at me for doing the voices, if I could just crack them up, or my classmates, I just thought the way in to get people to like me was to make them laugh. If somebody's laughing, they can't hate you. They can't be mad at you. And so it took me a few years to actually perfect the funny. By then, my self-esteem was in shambles. But, sometime in high school, there was a 6th grade Christmas pageant performance that was a very socially conscious sixth grade teacher. And while everybody else was doing little Santa Claus sketches, he wanted us to sing hymns like "We Shall Overcome." And I played this old man in a smoking jacket in silhouette. They graded my hair, and I had a pipe, and I would just hold forth to the audience about the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Did I know what I was talking about? No, but did I memorize? Yes. And I'd seen 2001, and I got the only A+ I got was in his class. I did my presentation as though Hal was, open the pod bay doors, Hal. I can't do that, Maurice. But first, I will tell you about the first Prime Minister of Canada, Sir John A. Macdonald. And so this was how my creativity came about. But you know what?
Naturally.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And I always kept trying to make my schoolwork fun. And unfortunately, in the 1960s, that wasn't as the progressivism of, new schools and free schools and all that type of thing hadn't hit yet. But I'd probably do well in a more integrative kind of situation if I was to, go back and be, regress now, with some kind of science fiction child ray. I'd probably do decently, in some of the more progressive modes, private schools, things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if the public school system would know what to do with me, but.
Were your parents creative?
Yes.
Do you think that their creative identity was passed on to you at all genetically? And also, do you ever find yourself doing something today going, oh my God, that's my mom or that's my dad?
Oh, absolutely. Both my parents, if I go through photo albums, my father was in broadcasting for a little while, but he just didn't see it as a way to make a lot of money, especially since we started. He was a radio announcer and TV presenter in a little town called Timmins, Ontario.
Okay.
He did the news and he did the local bingo show. And he was a DJ and he did this thing up on the hill. There's this hill you could drive up to on a Friday night and make requests. And he would play it and be all outdoors, even though it was freezing because Timmins gets down to like -20.
Wow.
So, so my dad had a beautiful speaking voice and very, very low and mellifluous and very cultured sound to his voice. And so he had that. And I went in the photo albums and he even had a little time where he was in theater. But of course, because it was a small theater company in a local French Canadian mining town, he was in drag. He had a bridal outfit on, even though he had a little pencil mustache. There were no women that wanted to be in this theater company, apparently. Right. So, it really hit me when I saw this when I was like 6, going, Daddy, why are you in a dress? And my mom had a little period there where she, wanted to model, and there's like a little portfolio of her, with tub of margarine, kneeling next to an oven. I don't know why she's going to margarine up the oven. I don't know. Or maybe it was a cleaner of some sort. But my mother had a facility for accents and voices. Ah. So my father had a dry sense of humor. He was sort of the king of the arched eyebrow and the, oh, really? Kind of that kind of dry remark. My mother, wonderful mimic, could do every accent as long as it was somebody she knew. Like if she told you a story about her friends and one of her friends was French and the other one was Lebanese, she'd do their voices while telling you what went down in the conversation.
And is this before you started doing it?
No, long before.
Wow.
It was just natural in my house that there were these accents being done. And, and my mother was a wonderful joke teller and storyteller. So it was in the house, even though neither of them went on to pursue anything professionally in the long term. The instrument was being tuned in both of them, and therefore, I guess, in me. I don't know if it's hereditary or cultural, but my ear for doing voices and impressions, I've just always been able to do it.
Sounds like a really creative environment to grow up in.
It was, and yet there was a lot of impatience with my inability to get serious and put my head down over the paper and write an essay on whatever the subject was. It had to be fun. I was always looking to make everything fun. I used to dance while mowing the lawn because the tedium of mowing the lawn was
I love that.
Absolutely. It was just in intolerable. But, I would hear the music in my head and I would dance to whatever. And my mother kind of, why does everything have to be a game with you? You look like an idiot to the neighborhood. So I was always worried about looking like an idiot to the neighborhood. And then eventually I just went, well, I guess I'm going to look like an idiot to the neighborhood because I need to have fun. I need to make everything fun. Look
at your life. You make a living being silly.
And if I had to do anything else that it didn't involve that, I don't know what I would have done with myself. I get to go to work on the regular to do things that, I used to get detention for.
Yeah.
Which is to do voices, to make people laugh, to have fun, to make myself laugh. And it's the Steve Martin line and from that great song from the first album. But the most amazing thing to me is I get paid for doing this. Exactly right. I don't know how I lucked out.
Yeah.
I've won the lottery, but instead of the one lump sum, I took the 26, now going on 40 annual payments.
Yeah.
And so, nobody dropped a gigantic bag of money on me in the middle of, enough to crush me.
Right.
I have sustained a very nice living for 40 years.
Yeah.
And
doing what you love.
Doing what I love. And it's very gratifying. I'm glad I got it this way. I'd have spent it all at once. If you'd have dropped $20 million on me all at once, I probably would have killed myself in some way. Too fast of a car or drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Who knows, so this is better.
Wow. Do you think that creativity, the same idea that we're talking about here, this part of your brain, could be implemented in curing people or at least helping people with mental health struggles like depression, anxiety?
I don't. Yeah, cure is a loaded word.
Right.
It's a guarantee that it'll go away, and I don't know that those conditions can be permanently eradicated if you have a tendency toward them. I think the best you can do is treat them.
Yes.
And treating them with creativity, I think, unless you're, then there's a certain kind of dark creativity, but it's better you let it out, say in writing a horror story than to actually become a horror story yourself. So, any kind of outlet involving creativity, I think will be helpful. I believe in treatment. I've kind of offhandedly mentioned drugs and alcohol in my last little riff there, but I'm a recovering alcoholic. I did go down a dark path in the late 80s. And so I've been sober for 36 years and a couple of months.
Congratulations.
I just don't take the first drink no matter what, or the first drug.
Right.
But I don't think I'm cured.
Right.
I know if I take one drink, that drink will grab hold of me and I'll take the rest of the drinks.
Right.
Perhaps unto death. I may never get sober again.
Yeah.
So I just don't play with it. So that's not a cure. It's a treatment.
Right.
So my treatment for that is, if you've ever been to an AA meeting, the amount of laughter there rivals that in a comedy club, for crying out loud. But we're talking about the darkest crap in the world. We're talking about, these horrible things we did or that happened as a result of our drunkenness or our loadedness. And it's funny to us.
Yeah.
But normal people come in, they're appalled. Oh my God. But laughing away your problems, not in a frivolous way, but in seeing the humor of life.
Yes.
Seeing that
absurdity.
It's all absurd. It's all absolutely absurd. And the less personally you take that absurdity, the healthier you are.
Yeah.
Because life just goes in the direction it's going, and it's all one moment at a time, and we're always living that moment. And now it's gone. Now we're in this moment, and now it's this moment, and it's like whatever it is, we're just for me, just finding the humor, finding the comedy, finding the laugh has absolutely, and giving the laugh, knowing that I'm, distributing a little joy to my fellow person is very gratifying to me. And I don't know where this all goes. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why any of us are here, and I don't know where we're going after it's over. I have no idea. I don't have the hubris to presume that I know, even no matter which dusty scrolls you're paying attention to and were brought up with. I just know I have the moment, and let's make it as joyful as possible. And for me, that's through humor.
Yeah, and with all the creative things that you do for a living, if you're having a challenging day and battling some kind of darkness in your mind, does it help to just disappear into a story? Does it give you a little bit of a break?
Sure. Yes. I mean, I do make up stories in my head. My big thing is I need to sit down and start writing at 67 years old. Things that all my friends have done. I don't have the discipline for it, but I've promised myself I'll write my story. You know? And whether anybody wants to buy a book about Maurice LaMarche or not, doesn't matter. I need to write down.
I was going to ask you because I love Rob's book.
I love it too.
Yeah,
and I'm in there. I'm in there once or twice.
Absolutely.
But
I think you have a lot of good stories to tell.
I might. Billy West is actually finishing up his book, Fry on Futurama, and both Ren and Stimpy, and the Red M&M. And Billy's got a book. I mean, the stories Billy has, man, are unbelievable. But I mean, he's gone some dark places in his life. He's longer sober than I am. When I met him, I had a problem, and he was one of those people that kind of led me towards the light.
Oh,
we were doing The New Adventures of Beanie and Cecil up in Vancouver, BC, a show that only ran 4 episodes, even though it was really well executed. Chuck Lorre wrote one.
Oh, wow!
One episode that's on. You can find it on YouTube. Eddie Gordetsky, who writes on everything as well, he also got his start writing there, and it was this great little pocket. And of course, it was animated by John Kricfalusi, who brought us Ren and Stimpy.
Right. So it has a Ren and Stimpy kind of look on a lower budget, not the texture of the original Ren and Stimpy. Right.
But you'll recognize the character design. So Billy, I can't wait for his book because he has got some crazy stories.
My older son Django loves cartoons and voiceover work, so I can't wait to tell him about that.
Yeah.
He brings up Billy all the time.
Yeah, it'll be out next year.
He'll watch cartoons with me, and he'll point out you if you're doing a voice. Like, he knows everybody.
That's great. He's got a great ear.
Yeah. So when we first met, I remember we connected because you've been through some serious personal tragedies. Mm-hmm. And along the same lines about what we're talking about, when you went through that stuff, have you ever used that creative part of your brain to solve those challenges in your life? And maybe beyond that, like, how did you get over the tragedies you experienced?
I don't think I've ever gotten over them.
Yeah.
I've learned to function again.
Yeah.
For your audience's sake, if they don't know my story, my father was murdered in 1987 by a former friend who just kind of went crazy with jealousy and shot him to death in the lobby of a hotel during a big convention. My baby sister, 2.5 years later, 18 years old, just wasn't wearing a seatbelt and was fiddling with the radio and went off the side of the road, flipped the car. And
what was her name?
Her name was Jacinda. Jacinda Louise. And she was the light of my life. There was a 16-year age difference. So while my friends were all, going to parties and that type of thing, I was like, I wanted to babysit my baby sister. She was the most beautiful thing I'd ever met. And just I knew I wanted to be a father because of Jacinda.
She really made you happy.
Yeah, she was a sweetheart, the sweetest child. And she died at 18.
Oh. So these two incidents, how old were you, and then how far apart?
I was 20. I was 3 weeks away from my 29th birthday when my father died, and I was 30. I was 32 when my baby sister died. So
it's not a lot of time in between.
Not a lot of time in between. I was already recovering from one, and I really went down the drug and alcohol hole with my dad.
Yeah. Got
sober, and then 1.5 years later, my sister died.
Oh.
So I was, one thing I learned was, drinking and using doesn't bring anybody back.
Right.
So I didn't drink and use over my sister.
Oh, that's good.
Nor my mother a couple of years later, and nor any of the many friends I've lost. It's feelings are meant to be pass through. I mean, you go through them. You just have them and go through them.
What helped you though? What helped you get through all these really?
Well, I think again, lots of therapy.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful workshop called the Grief Recovery Workshop, and there's a Grief Recovery Handbook written by a man named John James and Russell Friedman and Frank Cherry, and that work is very key to my getting over my losses. I've probably been in therapy almost all of my 36 years of sobriety, and even a little before that.
That's great.
Because it was a therapist who pointed me towards going to 12-step programs. And, but in terms of the creativity, I probably just use the endorphins.
Yeah.
I draft on the endorphins. I don't need drugs because I draft on the endorphins of the creative life of humor, of comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been out for lunch with Tom and Ray, and it's just like sometimes just being around a table with other funny people.
John Manfrotto.
It's my Manfro. That's all you need. That's like a dose of antidepressants.
So you definitely have a lot of resilience to get through these things. And looking back, I'm curious, did your sister and your parents get to see you have some success doing what you love?
They did. My father actually got to come see me open for Rodney Dangerfield.
Wow.
In Vegas, and same with my mother.
And this is when you were doing stand-up.
Back in my stand-up.
This is before Cartoon
But
Boys.
stand-up, I haven't talked about stand-up. Stand-up was, that 10 years when I did it was my big drug. I mean, nothing, it didn't matter what happened. If I had a spot at Yuck Yucks in Toronto starting out, or which, also, starting ground, proving ground for Howie Mandel, Norm Macdonald, Jim Carrey.
Wow.
I was there Jim's first night.
Wow.
I was there Howie's first night. So, if I knew I had a spot, I had no other problems. I had no problems at all. All I knew is I have a spot tonight. I'm going to get out there for 7 minutes, 10 minutes, and crack the audience up. And
I'm guessing from what you told me, you wrote your material. You weren't doing improv.
I was better with co-writing. Like I would get together with certain guys, like
for your own material.
For my own material, I just sitting around a deli table and creating, because a lot of it was kind of like one man sketch comedy. I had a whole Fantasy Island bit. I saw the SCTV thing and the wonderful job Gene Levy and John Candy did with Mr. Rourke and Tattoo. They had this Fantasy Island routine, and I thought I can do that and I can do the voices better. Yeah. And so I wrote my own Fantasy Island bit with a couple of guys, Steve Pulver and Lawrence Morgenstern.
I got to hear a tiny bit of that because I grew up watching that show.
Oh my God! No, you're putting me on the spot now. I can't remember it. It's been so long.
I remember religiously watching every episode of that.
Oh my God, I cannot remember. My wife did an episode of that. She did a very legendary episode.
Oh, is she an actor?
My wife was an actor before she was
wow.
she went. She's getting her graduate degree in psychology in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But no, she was in the anytime Michelle Pfeiffer does a talk show.
Yeah.
She busts out her first job, and they go to let's watch Michelle Pfeiffer's very first job, an episode of Fantasy, and then it's Michelle on screen with another actress, and they are like this island of beautiful women.
Yes.
And Robert Morse is this. It's like Wonder Woman without the superpowers. Robert Morse's fantasy is to parachute in and be rescued by on this island.
I do remember women. That one. Yeah.
Well, my wife was the one who I think her name was Niobe. And she was the one who ends up going off with Bobby Morse at the end of the episode.
Oh, wow.
And she had all the lines. Michelle had one line. Yeah. And so she shows herself doing that one line and talking to my wife, the beautiful Robin G. Eisenman. And so Robin gets a residual check every time Michelle Pfeiffer goes on a talk show because they dig up that Fantasy Island clip. And they haven't seen each other since. But Robin said that, she was really nervous about that one line, so we just kept running it all day long. And,
wow.
Yeah, but She said Michelle Pfeiffer's really, really nice, and of course Robin's really, really nice, but they just didn't click and connect.
So you were doing stand up.
So I was doing stand up. I had this kind of one man Fantasy Island bit where I would just get down, bounce down on my knees and come stand up. Very, very athletic. Yeah. And I play both Mr. Rourke. Look, Tattoo, the guests are arriving. I can't remember the comedy line.
Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah, Ricardo Montalban and. Look, boss, here comes Johnny Carson, boss, or whatever.
Wasn't he in a James Bond?
He was Knick-Knack in The Man with the Golden Gun. So that's all. I mean, it was just, it was a great workout. I had legs like tree trunks in those days because of all the up and down and up and down. Now, of course, today my knees creak when I walk because you can only come down with 160 pounds on your knees so many times. And I did it like, for 3 years. The tremendous endorphin rush of doing stand-up comedy was also a way to get through it. Now I stopped doing stand-up as soon as my dad died.
Oh,
that was the impetus for me to just go. That's it. I don't want to get on a stage again. He was the one who believed in me. He was the one who told me you can do this. He supported me even financially a little bit.
So did you feel kind of hopeless?
I just kind of like my dad will never be out in the audience again. It was the one thing I did that made him proud.
Right.
So I sort of turned my back on stand up, and I regret it today. If I had a time travel fantasy, it would be to go back and and talk to myself and go, listen, you can't let this get you. You got to get back up there.
How did you get from that point, though, of giving up stand-up?
Of course, if I had a time machine, I'd go back and prevent my father's murder. But then God knows what,
You should be writing this down. These are good ideas.
Yeah, because then I come back and Hitler has won World War II. No, wait, that wouldn't happen. It was
butterfly effect.
Yeah, it's butterfly effect. Donald Trump becomes the president. Oh, wait, that's happened too. I guess it wouldn't matter one way or the other. So anyway.
How'd you get from that point of giving up stand-up comedy and then eventually end up doing voices for...
The voice thing came to me like almost by accident.
Yeah.
There was a voiceover agent in the audience one night around about 1984, and I can say her name. She's still actually working. She's not my agent now, but that's okay. I really do give her credit for starting me off and giving me a career. Her name was Nina Nisenholtz, and she was they just opened a voiceover department at the William Morris Agency, and she was the voiceover agent, and she saw me, and she said, with all the impressions you do, you could make a living doing voiceover. And I said, well, I heard it's all Frank Welker and Dawes Butler, and nobody can get in. And she said, well, let me send you out on some auditions. I auditioned, Malcolm, for a year before I got a job.
Wow!
But I didn't care because I was on tour with Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah.
And
what do you got to lose?
Exactly. I mean, I viewed it as this kind of side thing that I was doing, and if it worked, yeah. And so a year later, I got this call. Yeah, you're doing a Southwest Airlines commercial. Okay. This is nice. Okay, good. And then came an episode of The Littles, an episode of Wolf Rock TV, which starred Wolfman Jack. So I was like, wow, I'm in the same room with Wolfman Jack. Yeah. This is pretty amazing. And The Littles, I was working with both Ebb and the guy who played Hank Kimball. They were Ebb from the Green Acres show. These guys were on Green Acres together. So it was a little bit of stunt casting, and they were so nice. I sound like Trump. Everybody's nice. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. I love him. Yeah. President Xi, a good guy. Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, a good guy. He's a good guy. So I've never done that voice before. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, I was just so taken with the whole stand-up thing, and then again that loss, I just never wanted to do it again because I wouldn't see him out there.
Yeah,
he would fly in from anywhere to see me work.
Do you ever imagine that he's out there when you're doing stuff, like listening to you? Because my parents passed away, and I often still talk to them because I can't deal with the fact that they're gone. Yeah.
I've kind of squared with the idea right now.
Yeah.
At this point in my life, and we change belief systems every 7 years or so, that if there's a dad to talk to, it's the one I carry around in my heart.
Yeah, right.
Who was the one I was having the relationship while he was alive.
Yeah.
You know, you know, we don't truly know anybody. We just have our perception of them. So I talk to the dad that I have the perception of.
Beautiful
but I
idea.
don't think he's floating around watching me.
No, and that's not what I was saying. I think it's just for me. You know, I think of things that I wish, you know, you have something good happen. And for me, I always want to call my parents. Guess what happened today?
Yeah.
You know, I do miss that.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think keeping them in your heart is a little more close to reality. At least.
I just continue the relationship I had with them all the time.
Yeah.
Just the physical them isn't here, you know? Yeah. I mean, I like to think that if they were still here, they'd be proud. As I said, my dad did get to come see me open for Rodney Dangerfield, as did my mom at different times, because they divorced when I was 10. That's a whole other thing.
What was their response to singing with Rodney?
Oh, my dad was just very, my dad didn't get worked up over much. He was a very kind of almost,
like stoic?
Yeah, I would say that. He always operated on a certain level of charm. And if you can imagine John Hamm in Mad Men,
yeah,
that was kind of my dad. I mean, and he even married a woman. His second wife was half his age. So and the era of Mad Men, he's exactly Don Draper's exactly the same age my father would be. So ladies' man. Today we call him a sex addict, but we'll stick with ladies' man or womanizer if we're going to get a little disparaging, which is why the marriage didn't stay together. And my mom just she was just so thrilled. And she went into, Rodney Dangerfield invited us into his dressing room at Caesars. And he had this glass, dining room table. But Rodney had a habit of not being able to keep his bathrobe shut. The man had an energy field surrounding his body that repelled terry cloth. So no matter what, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, I noticed it because I'd seen it come open so many times, as every comedian. All comedians have a Rodney Dangerfield open robe story. It's just Jerry Seinfeld talks about it. Bob Saget talked about it. But there's a scene where he's going to do the dive in Back to School, and he's walking with his son towards the diving board, and and I can tell they have stapled that damn bathrobe shut. Because his body was exactly the right shape to just have the bathroom come open and open and open. And sure enough, my mom is sitting there, and Rodney is, he's got a bowl of soup. And that's the only thing blocking the view as the robe is coming more open and open. I'm going, Rodney, the robe, my mom, the robe. Huh? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay, sure, yeah. All right, buddy, yeah. Hey, Norma, so how about this kid of yours, huh? You're proud of him? I hope you are. Yeah.
Precariously placed bowl of soup.
Yeah, it was absolutely perfectly placed.
Well, that's great that they got to see you do that.
Yeah, they did. The cartoons, a little bit. My mom, she died in 92. So she never saw, neither of them ever got to see Pinky and the Brain.
I'm sure they heard you do Orson Wells, though.
Yeah, I guess they did. Although the people that got to hear me do Orson Welles heard it in studio, because once I put on the headphones and got in on the microphone, I knew exactly how to play we know a remote farm in Lincolnshire where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July, peas grow there. Do you really mean that? That would be the frozen peas outtake, which you can find on the internet, was where I learned to do Orson Welles.
Yeah.
He has this, it's about a 7-minute long rant with these two British producers of commercials from the 1970s, and they're micromanaging his syllables, literally, and he just will not have it. And it's a brilliant, brilliant piece of audio verite, if you will, of catching a celebrity in the act of being himself. Yeah. And it's brilliant. And and I had the tape of this. Phil Proctor from the Firesign Theater gave me the tape, and
that was a great group. Firesign.
Yeah, they were great, and so I would listen to it in my car every day, and I would just keep trying to get those nuances down. Yeah. He had a tremuloso in his voice that was amazing when he said the word shoals. Near where the cod gather in great shoals, there, Jans Stanglin.
Like I said, I have two sons. Our younger son Caleb went to college to learn to design video games, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
And he programs something called Unreal Engine, which they make all the games with. And then our older son, Django, he loves playing video games. So I know that you've done a lot of voiceover work for video games. Just tell me one story about a really fun time you had working on a video game. And maybe how does that differ from doing cartoons, or does it not?
Well, it certainly is a lot more takes.
Yeah.
Because they need a short, medium, long of everything. Video games themselves, I mean, I think my favorite, well, it was an educational video game. It was called Little Howie's Funhouse.
Okay.
And it was the Great Word Adventure and then the Great Math Adventure. And Howie Mandel and Bob Ezrin, Canadian record producer.
The record producer, Bob Ezrin?
Yeah.
Wow, that did like Lou Reed and Peter Gabriel?
Yes.
Wow.
Dear friend of all of ours, but in my particular case, he's my son's godfather.
Fascinating.
Yeah, we all met one night at a place that isn't there anymore called Fabs or Fabs.
Yeah.
Was it Fabs or Fabs? It was an Italian restaurant in Sherman Oaks. And he recognized, of all people, he recognized me. The Young Comedians special had just been on the air. The Rodney Dangerfield special that had Sam Kinison and he told me, I didn't see Howie Mandel. I saw you, and I was like, I want to come over and tell you how great I thought you were. So he came over to the table and he updated us. The Blue Jays were in the playoffs, the Toronto Blue Jays, and we're all from Toronto. Michael Rotenberg, producer extraordinaire in 3 Arts Entertainment, and Howie. And so we pushed our tables together, and within 2 nights we were over at his house for Rosh Hashanah dinner. And we just have been friends ever since.
Yeah.
So Bob had a company called Seventh Level, and they did the Monty Python game, the 2 Monty Python games, and then the Howie Mandel games. So I did do a lot of work on the Python games.
Yeah.
Because they only had to do a certain number, but they needed a lot of pepper pot ladies, ooh my, things like that. And I was pretty proficient at that stuff, especially when I was younger. My voice hadn't quite reached its basso profundo that it's at now. So I could do all those, sounds, and I could do Graham Chapman's, harumphs as the general. And so I actually have a credit. They couldn't give me a cast credit. They gave me a thank you credit. But I have a ton of sound cues on the Monty Python games, the Complete Waste of Time.
And I forgot about
and
that
the Holy
game.
Grail game, and also the Little Howie's Funhouse games where I was Stinky the skunk. So I got to be sarcastic towards Howie Mandel because Howie was this kind of blissful character that nothing bad ever happened to. Every disaster that was headed to him landed on me.
Yeah.
And that's just, I love the curmudgeon. That's like probably my favorite archetype is to play the curmudgeon. So that was tremendous fun, getting to work with a creative genius like Bob Ezrin. Was great. I mean, I know him as a friend, and then I finally got in the studio with him.
Yeah.
And I realized what it was to be produced by him. He's got so many ideas. And
yes.
They're all freaking great. And then the other really, as I've limited how much video game work I can do because I did a Warner Brothers game where I played Yosemite Sam, and it was literally a phone book's worth of cues, and I lost my voice for a month after that.
That's a tough one, right?
Yeah, it was really tough. So I especially when I had an account like the Lexus account, where for 7 years I was in studio 4 days out of 5 a week.
When was this?
I was the voice of Lexus between 2009 and 2017.
Wow,
my last day of work was Obama's last day of work. Literally, the next day, the first Trump presidency started, and I was out of a job. But so I was the 2016 Lexus GS, once driven. There's no going back. See your Lexus dealer. That was me. I would show up to do a Lexus commercial for which they were paying me a very handsome salary and giving me a car to drive.
Wow.
For 7 years, I didn't have a car payment.
And I saw you drive up in one of those.
I got a new car every year. Well, the car you're seeing out there, they actually let me buy at a very discounted price on my last day of work. So that's my little memory of my Lexus time. But I would show up and it would be like, the 2016 Lexus GS. Once driven, there's no going back. I couldn't even make the southern accent go away. I'd be like, still be you in Yosemite Sam mode. Yeah, the 2016 Lexus GS. So I had to step away from Yosemite Sam, and Fred Tatasciore does it now. But he's Again, another character who everything that happens to him is his own fault. And it's because he takes himself too damn seriously and he just wants to kill that rabbit. He was tremendous fun to play, but not my larynx disagrees with me. So the other game that I'm really proud of is the Batman Arkham games.
Yes, now I know my son Django loves that.
Getting to play Mr. Freeze, who is this very complex character, because there's a part of him that's quite heroic, and there's a part of him that's truly villainous, and they coexist because his wife is in a state of suspended animation, and being held by this corporate bigwig. He's put her in cryostasis because she's got a disease that will kill her within a week.
Right.
So he's a scientist and he's trying to work on the cure. And then, during the cryogenic part of this, he actually gets submerged in the chemicals and comes out with this metabolism that can't function above 32 degrees.
Right.
So he has to keep himself frozen. And he develops all these weapons that freeze things. So, but he just views people as impediments to his finding the cure for his wife. So he just needs to cure his wife, and it doesn't matter if you're the Joker or Batman or the Penguin, you're in his way and you must be dispensed with. And little does he know, Batman is also Bruce Wayne, who is trying to fund his research to find a cure for his wife's condition. But he's just, everything about him is cold. A cold, cold heart, Batman. You are in my world now. You will bring me Nora, or you will die. It's just a sinister, and yet you got to admire him. Yet he's got a blind spot. He is freezing guards to death.
Yeah.
To try to cure his wife, but he doesn't quite put it together because he snapped that those guards have families too, and spouses who love them just as much as he loves Nora. So, he is a villain. There's no question.
Yeah. I noticed when I looked at your credits, you have been brought in to do the voices of other celebrities or other actors a lot, but also historical figures. Is it correct that you did some people like George Washington and Abraham Lincoln?
Well, yeah, but I did them with
Well, my question is, where do you come up with the voice of somebody that's never been recorded?
Well, I knew Lincoln was from the Midwest.
Okay.
Illinois. And I thought, well, I can't think of anybody from Illinois, but I do know Nebraska, fairly close by, also Midwest. Johnny Carson is from Nebraska. So I infused, Lincoln with Johnny Carson's voice. I mean, it was a tremendously accurate show about history, Hysteria.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers Hysteria, created by Tom Ruegger. I mean, they had historical scholars on staff just to fact check stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, everything you see in Hysteria, which I think you can stream on Hulu now, is absolutely accurate. But it's also funny.
Yeah.
We present it in a funny way. So, there were things that were, my idea, like making George Washington Bob Hope. I don't know why. Ruger just had me just try to throw a bunch of spaghetti noodles on the fridge, and the Bob Hope one was the one.
Wow.
That stuck. Love that. Love that show. That was one of those unsung shows that really I wish they'd gone on forever.
I'm going to read you a quote by one of my favorite writers. She is a female monk. Her name is Pema Chodron. And she once said this: "To be fully alive, fully human, and completely awake is to be continually thrown out of the nest. To live fully is to be always in no man's land. To experience each moment as completely new and fresh. To live is to be willing to die over and over again." What do you think?
What does she know? I say stay safe. Stay inside. Don't go outside. No, I'm kidding. I think she's absolutely right. And I need to, I talked earlier about starting to write at 67 years old, and I'm only saying that half humorously. I have the voice in my head that says, who are you to think you should write at this point in your life? Just take your retirement, from your two unions and Social Security and go shut up, go in a corner. And if they call you, If they call you for a voiceover job, count yourself lucky. But then there's that part of me that goes, you've got a story to tell.
A lot of stories.
You have not, told your story. You've got other stories to tell. I've got an idea for a sitcom in my head. I've got, I want to do a one-man show. And it's dangerous work to do that. It's dangerous to face that blank screen.
Yeah.
And be challenged with the idea that you may not have it, and yet lean forward and do it anyway.
Well, think about, not only have you told me that fans have said that your work helped them, think if you tell the hardships that you've gone through in your personal life. That'll probably help tons.
That's part of the reason I'm doing
people.
it, because I've come out, come through it to the point that I've come through it with some joy.
Yeah.
With a degree of joy you might not expect from somebody who's lost not only his father, but Phil Hartman was a dear friend of mine.
Oh, my gosh.
First voice on my answering machine the morning my son was born was Phil. Mighty Mo! Nina tells me you had a baby in the middle of the night. That's great. He was so sweet and a dear friend. And we knew each other since before, big fame hit him. And he still stayed in touch.
Yeah.
And I said, why are you, I'm so flattered you want to hang out with me, man. But you must have so many famous, rich friends now. And he goes, Mo, you want to know why famous people hang out with other famous people? Because they think that their regular friends from who knew them when won't want to hang out with them anymore. So that's why. So don't be that guy, okay? Don't go away.
Yeah.
Because it's not that the famous person leaves their friend behind. It's that the friend goes, oh, I'm not worthy to hang out with you now that you're on Saturday Night Live or whatever it might be, So Phil and I stayed friends. And so when he was murdered, it was a hard one because it was echoes of, another handgun murder in my life.
Right.
And then June 10th, 2016, my son had befriended a brother and sister from, he was going to music college. He was going to MI, and he'd befriended a guy named Marcus Grimmie was his classmate, and his sister Christina was an internet kind of sensation. She was a YouTube star.
Okay.
Just singing songs in her bedroom.
Yeah.
She had this huge following, millions of followers. And then she went on The Voice, and she finished. I mean, she finished third, which is in a way, it's a lot less pressure than winning it.
Yeah.
But she went on tour, and my son went on her first European tour with her.
Oh.
He played guitar, or bass, bass.
That's awesome.
Marcus played guitar. And now the real burps are coming. I take all these supplements, you see. Anyway, a year later, and it was actually on his actual birthday, June 10th, 2016, she was murdered by a fan at her own meet and greet. It didn't get as much press as it might have because the next night the Pulse killings happened.
Oh, okay.
Just down the street from the venue where Christina was killed. And so to say what are the odds that one person would know three people in his life in different decades who were killed by handguns?
Yeah.
I've got to not look to the heavens and not say why and not take it personally and not think that it means anything about me or that I'm an unlucky person or anything like that. It's just life gets lifey. And it also gets deathy, and it's just part of the stream of things. There's so much joy in the world, and there are tragedies, and you focus on whatever. It's that great old saw that you see turns up on the internet of the shaman who his grandson says he tells his grandson, you have two wolves inside of you, one who wants to destroy everything and rip everything apart, and another one who wants to nurture and feed. Which one will grow inside me, grandfather? The one you feed.
Yeah.
So you feed the positive wherever you can. And
absolutely.
And know that life is random, and just make the most of every day.
I agree, but I also think it's imperative that you tell these stories in book form and maybe even do the Audible, because I think wisdom.
I don't have the voice for it.
I think you should do it. I think you're really going to help a lot of people and beyond making them laugh.
Oh, I hope it.
You got my vote in there.
Thank you.
Before we go, what would you like to promote? First of all, if people want to see your stuff, tell me if I'm wrong, but I know you're on Instagram. Are you also on Facebook? Do you have a website or YouTube? Where can they?
Yeah, the stuff I have on YouTube is I haven't put up anything on YouTube. I have a thing on YouTube. Probably the most viewed thing I have is my tutorial on how to talk like William Shatner.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it's called Maurice LaMarche. I guess you'd find it on my channel. It's just International Talk Like William Shatner Day. My friend Bill Bigger, one day we were riding in the car. He goes, "You heard of this thing? It's International Talk Like a Pirate Day." I said, "Yeah, it's kind of silly, isn't it?" And he goes, "Yeah. You know what you should do? You should do International Talk Like William Shatner Day. You should teach people how to talk like William Shatner. Do it on his birthday." I don't want to. So he sticks a camera in my face while I'm driving him to the airport 2 days before Shatner's birthday. And he says, just teach me how to do Shatner. So I talk to the camera as though it's Bill, and I give this lesson on how to talk like William Shatner. And the first thing you've got to do, of course, is put a certain buzz in your voice. And the next thing you've got to do is whenever you say the word you got to say it as though it's a bad smell. You. And so there's this, and it went viral because the guy.
Because your buddy put it up.
Well, he put it up on my channel. I gave him my password. And then there used to be this site called Ain't It Cool News.
Yeah.
And it went viral because he had 1 million followers. So it's the brain teaches you how to talk like William Shatner for International Talk Like William Shatner Day. So on Shatner's birthday in that year, it got, I think, 100,000, 200,000 views. And then Shatner started tweeting about it.
Really?
It's International Talk Like Me Day. Look, who am I supposed to talk like? So we've had this back and forth with International Talk.
How long has that been going on?
I don't know. I've lost track of what year we did it. The next year, Kevin Pollak and I did a video together. Just happened that he was at a table reading of Futurama. Yeah. So we went outside on the Fox lot and just Shatnered each other. And
it's a verb now.
So now it just became, it took on a life of its own. And I actually haven't fed that beast in a little while, but people still write about it. I mean, I think something like 17 newspapers carried the story the first year.
Wow.
There's this thing called International Talk Like William Shatner Day. Yeah, I just, so you can look for me on YouTube. It's just Maurice LaMarche. Instagram, I'm Maurice_LaMarche. LaMarche is spelled LaMarche. I don't tweet that much, but it's Maurice LaMarche, all one word.
Facebook or no?
Facebook, but I think I've hit my maximum.
Yeah.
For the friends. And I don't post that much on there anymore. But the things I'm really excited about are
what's coming up?
Watch out for Animaniacs Live coming to your town. We do the music of Animaniacs. I come out as in the Brains persona, and we have Rob Paulson and I have a wonderful song about taking over the world, and then at the end I come back and we do this kind of who's on first-ish kind of sketches involving the names of the countries of the world. After he just finishes singing that song, that's our big finale. And so we just came from, as I said, Ohio U putting on that show, and we've got a few more dates coming up this year.
Is that East Coast, West Coast? What area?
It's all over. Yeah. I know we're doing 2 cities in Canada, in Ontario. One of them is Guelph. Mm-hmm. I can't remember where the other one is right now, but it's coming up in January of 26. And look for me at your local at Comic-Cons around the country. I know I'm doing Indianapolis.
Yeah.
In June. So.
And is there a website?
We're working on that. Actually, the lovely Jen.
Yes, I know Jen well.
Putting together my webpage.
She did a great one for John Manfrotati.
Yeah. So I'm going to.
Oh, good.
I just have to be more proactive in helping her, and getting her more stuff. So yeah, I will do it.
All right. Well, Maurice LaMarche, thank you so much for talking to me. I didn't even
get
through.
Thank you for having me, Malcolm. I've had a wonderful time.
Yeah, this is
You've taken me places that some of the most professional ongoing podcasters haven't. So it felt very easy to talk to you. So you host a very nice show here, and just for that, I'm not going to have clamps. Give you the clamps. You sure you don't want me to clamp them, boss? I can clamp, Malcolm. Clamp and dip. No clamps. No clamps.
Thanks very much.
Thanks,
Maurice.
It's been a pleasure.